Hi, welcome to the Woods Fans. It's Melissa Woods. Today I'm here to share with you some tips and tricks for how to use a nailer. And I have a couple different nailers to show these on. Very typical for DIYers to have a brad nailer or a finish nailer. I'm going to show you on both. Just like the slight differences, and then how to load your nail gun, how to service your nail gun, how to adjust the depth of your nail, and the differences between the nails themselves. And then I'm also going to talk to you about like an air compressor version pneumatic nailer. Alright, so first I want to show you the simplest part is loading your gun with nails, and each gun is slightly different. With my cordless nail gun from Rigid, there is just this that you push back. It's kind of spring loaded, so it takes a little bit of push. And then you can load in your nails right there. You see that? How it's open in the back? So this is a finish nailer. I'm going to grab up my nails. You can buy these at any hardware store, and they come in lots of different sizes, lengths. And you just stick it in there. Mine, I just use gravity to get it to push down. And then I push this black button, which snaps this piece so that it's holding the nail's tension, ready to load it into here. Now, the Rigid nail gun has the hyperdrive, so it very, very rarely gets a nail stuck. In fact, I've been using it on tons of projects since I got it 8 months ago, and I haven't had a single nail stuck yet. So I think part of that is because of this tension here, and then whatever's inside this big barrel. So that's how you load your nails in that type of gun. But I also want to show you on a pneumatic nailer. This is a very simple base model of a nailer that hooks into an air compressor. And on this one, you have this little lever here that pops off. This opens, and you load your nails right in here. Here's the nail. You always make sure, obviously, that the head of the nail is on top. And you just hold it in, and then there's this black piece in the channel that when you press that down and push it, you have to kind of push hard, snaps into place, and that holds it tension for you. Now, it's important that you have it disconnected from your air source when you're loading it with nails. So that can be sometimes inconvenient if you are running out of nails frequently. But if it's still connected to your air source, this is a very dangerous situation to be loading your nail gun. So while I have this nailer out, I want to show you that there's always an adjustment piece for how deep the nail goes into your material, and you need to use that sometime depending on if you're using hardwood or softwood. If you're using hardwood, you need more force to get the nail in, and you would want to do your adjustment on the nailer to get the nail to sink deeper into the wood. If you're using a softwood, you don't want your nail to blow halfway through your material. The ideal is that your nail head is just flush or just below the front surface, the flat surface of the material you're nailing. So this is the adjustment on here. It's a dial on the top. And every nail gun is a little different, so that's kind of a spot where you read your manual on how to adjust the depth of the nail. On my Rigid nailer, it is pretty self-explanatory. It has a dial right here, and it shows you if you twist this way, the nail goes in further. See, and if you twist it this way, the nail pulls a little higher up on your material. So kind of interesting to note, and that can be important. In fact, I'm going to show you right now, I think, the differences. So I just have some scrap wood, and I'm going to shoot these nails through here. I have some pretty long nails in there right now, so I stacked up a bunch of wood so it doesn't hit my coffee table. But how you actually use the nailer, it's very simple. With the cordless nailer especially, you line up where you want to go, and it is truly a gun. There's a trigger. Right here is your trigger, okay? So you hold it and press the trigger when you're ready. But it's important that this orange piece here presses down, okay? Otherwise it won't nail. So if that orange piece isn't engaged, then you won't be able to hit your gun and nail it. Okay, so that is perfect because do you see? I'm going to show you a close-up here. Do you see how the nail is just below the surface? Now I'm going to move my dial this way, and that's going to pull the nail further up, so it's not going to be, it's either going to be totally flush or it's not even going to be all the way into the wood. Okay. There we go. Okay, so on that one you can see the head is still on the top of the surface, and that makes it so it's not very easy to just like sand over this wood. You always want your nail head to be underneath the surface. I want to show you here on my brad nailer that there's something I didn't really realize the first time I was using nailers. The size that it says it can handle is the maximum size. You can also put smaller nails in there. So this one uses a 2 1/8 inch. That's the maximum. You don't have to always use 2 1/8 of an inch nails in here. Obviously, sometimes you're building stuff and you need much smaller nails. So these brad nails are only 1 1/4 inch and they fit great. Every nailer is going to have their range of the size nails you can put in there. This one's range says the minimum is 5/8 of an inch and the maximum is 2 1/8 of an inch. So you can put a big nail in here all the way down to a little nail. On a cordless nailer, that's pretty much it. It's a very straightforward tool. So you just have your battery, you have your loading mechanism, and then you have your nail adjustment, depth adjustment. Mine does have one other fancy feature, but a lot don't have this. It's a switch right down here where I can toggle this and it will shoot 3 nails at a time or 1 nail at a time. I pretty much always use 1 nail at a time, but kind of an interesting feature. Okay, now I want to speak to how to use a nailer that includes the air compressor. Pneumatic nailers have connections like this. This quick connect piece allows me to easily pull back and release it from the gun, and I just hold it down in order to connect it. This makes it very simple to put your hose into your machine and pressurize so that the air is actually what pushes the nail into your material. It's very, very important that you always have this disconnected when you're going to service your gun, especially if you're going to try to get a nail that's like jammed in there unstuck. The connections on the hose here and the part where it goes into the tank right here, these have like metal coils that you tighten down and it holds the hose into place. Make sure those are always tight. Mine tend to come loose, and when that happens, the hose pops off and you hear a loud whooshing noise and you lose all the pressure in your tank. It's very annoying. That can also happen when your hose gets all tangled up or kinked. So make sure your hose is always free and able to move when you're working. I don't enjoy working with an air compressor because of this inconvenience, as well as the limitations of having a cord or an extension cord hooked up. However, you do have more pressure and more power if you're using pneumatic tools. And having an air compressor is a very versatile garage tool because you can use it with other things too, like staplers. You can use it to pressurize, tires, etc. So on the air compressor itself, when you're hooking it up to a nailer, mine is very simple, hardly any bells and whistles. This dial here changes the tank pressure and the regulated pressure. The regulated pressure is the pressure I want to come through the hose to the gun, and the tank pressure is basically what I want the air inside to pressurize at. So the PSI inside the tank, I usually set at 90 because when I read through the instructions on my tank and my gun, it said that I should be working with a PSI between 60 and 90. The higher the pressure, the further in your nail's going to drive, the more like power the tool's going to have. So I have my tank set at 90 and then the regulated pressure coming through the hose at like 65. This is going to allow the tank to pressurize and then turn off. And as I'm using the tool, it will obviously lose pressure because it's using the air to push material through. And when it gets down to 65, it'll turn on again and run to pressurize the tank back up to 90. Does that make sense? So just read your manuals at what PSI you're supposed to be working with and put your tank pressure at the higher end of that and your regulated pressure at the lower end of that. That's kind of how I do it. This here, there's always a air pressure release valve. So this you just pull out like this. It's pretty strong, like you have to pull pretty strong, and it releases the tank pressure. And you always want to do this at the end of the workday. You don't want to leave pressurized air in your machine. The other release is on the bottom. Condensation tends to gather up inside your air pressure tank, and this piece right here, this valve, needs to stay closed when you want the tank inside to pressurize air, and it needs to open when you're not using it so that the condensation can drain out and it doesn't wreck your machine. Last couple things, because mine is so simple. This here pulls in the air, so you want to make sure you're keeping that free of debris. And this is the on-off switch on the back. Very simple. Right here. This thing is pretty heavy, and it's like one of the smaller air compressors that you can find. So that's another piece that makes me definitely prefer my cordless nail guns. Everything I showed you today is in the description on this video. So my rigid nail gun set that I love, it has a lifetime warranty, by the way, through the Home Depot, even battery replacement. And then, of course, if you want something more inexpensive, you can get the air compressor and brad nailer. I'll link my recommendation below. I also did another video talking about the different types of nailers you can buy. Brad nailer, finish nailer, framing nailers, and you can check out that. I'll link it in the cards and I'll link it in the description. My channel is all about home DIY, so if you want to keep learning and being inspired by what I'm working on, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button or follow my page. Now you know the basics of how to use a nailer, and if you learned something in this video, I would love if you let me know in a comment below. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the woods. We'll see you all again next week. Bye-bye.